And so now, of course, they're questioning him. Okay, where's the rest of your peoples? Like, how did you get here? Where's everybody else? Okay, so this episode basically encompasses like most shows with this in this genre, where the first episode kind of introduces you to the characters and the problem that they're trying to solve. And so it opens with Alina. She's actually kind of narrating, kind of giving you her backstory, how she grew up in East Ravka, although she is Shuhan, which I'm assuming is another tribe or another group, and how she's always felt like an outsider.
I live in East Ravka, but I've never been welcome here.
You know, her mother is actually Shuhan. She hasn't said anything about her dad at this point, and as a result, she's always been treated like an outsider. And it was made clear when one of the guys she was traveling with, because it's a group of them, they're en route to, at this point, we don't know where. And one of the guys made some comment about how they're finally going to get a view from where she's from.
And did you get a better view from your country?
She grew up here. Come on.
The Shuhan didn't want her either.
Okay, so eventually there was a woman who was riding in the front of the truck, or she was well closer to the front, and she referred to the group of people, including Alina, as cartographers, and basically saying that they are almost at their destination. And so we flashed to Alina when she was a little girl, and she was being taught about, you know, maps and, you know, navigating all those things. And she ended up asking the woman, why can't we go around? And she's, you know, explained to her that the Grishas are on one side, and then there's another group that controls another side, and the only way is to go through the fold.
The north want our Grisha dead. The south guards its mountains.
And this is when, you know, we find out that the fold ate her parents, and of course a lot of the parents of these children from Shuhan, their parents were killed, so a lot of them were orphaned. And so that's eventually how Ravka, she ended up, that's how she grew up in East Ravka. And you flash to them now. They eventually arrive to their destination. And there's another voiceover of Alina basically saying that she learned as she became an adult that there's no way around the fold. You have to go through it.
But now, I'm old enough to know the only way out is through.
And so one of the guys with her made the comment of, name one person who isn't afraid to go through it. And then another one of the ladies that were with them said, I know a person, Mal. And you kind of see Alina blush. And of course it flashed back to when she was a kid. Mal was one of her childhood friends. But Mal wasn't, he was kind of a fretful young lad. He was a scary, he was just a regular kid. And so you could kind of see he kind of got bullied, and Alina had to stand up for him a couple of times.
Will you run from me, half-breed?
Stay away from him.
And so the same woman who was talking to Alina about the maps, about how they couldn't go around, she was basically calling Mal out, basically saying that you can't hide, you can't run from fights forever. Basically, eventually you're going to have to stand up for yourself.
But this is what you become. A boy who hides from a fight.
So, of course, it flashed to Mal, present day, as an adult. And what's he doing? He's in the midst of a brawl, it was an organized fight where he made made some coins. So Alina is walking, just kind of getting her bearings around the campground before they all, I guess, set up. They've already been broken down into teams, and they're just waiting for, I guess, instructions. And so you find that Mal is also there. So they meet up and they start talking, and she found out that he arrived the day before. And actually that his group and her group are supposed to work together. So I guess whenever they give them their assignments, they're going to be together, which of course they're excited about, because, you know, who don't want to work with their friend?
Yeah, I found out because they put in my unit with yours again.
So as they were walking to their respective areas, there was another group training, the Grishas, and they control, I don't know if it's the group or there are certain sections of the group, like they're broken down. So I guess squallers are the people who control kind of air. They can manipulate wind and air. And so they were kind of showing off their skills a little bit.
This is where our tents got moved.
And then, of course, the sirens rang out, and they realized basically they're having a meeting. And so they all went to attend the meeting where I guess they would give out the assignment. So they're now in the meeting, and the person in charge is basically saying that this is where, you know, they are. This is where they're trying to go. They're short on supplies. They're short on food, on ammunition, things of that nature. And so they now have to assemble a team to go through the fold to get these supplies to bring him back. And unfortunately, Maul's name was called. So, of course, at this point, Maul and Alina are confused because if you remember earlier, his group and her group are supposed to be together, and supposed to be on assignment together.
Tracker, Malien Oretsev, Corporal Mazionentov.
The Eyeliner.
So now they're confused and they think, okay, this must be a mistake. So they flash to Ketterdam, I believe that's how it's pronounced, the island of Kirch, Kirch, correct me in the comment section. And so this is where we meet 3 additional characters. So we meet Jesper.
Anyone can take a bullet, but the knockoff.
Who is kind of like the pretty boy, kind of outlaw kind of guy, right? And then we meet Kaz.
No loud noises at the table, Jesper.
Who runs an establishment, gambling parlor, bar, something to that effect. And so you realize that Jesper works for Kaz, and you find out that because Kaz ends up saying, aren't you supposed to be working the door? So I don't know if Jesper is the muscle, he's the security.
Shouldn't you be on the door?
Yeah, right, my boss.
So eventually, Kaz makes it up to his room, and this is where we meet Inez. Inez is the person who gets information for him.
Hello, Inez. What information do you have for me tonight?
And so she arrived, and she talked about this rich merchant, Dresden, who is looking to assemble a team to go through the fold to get. At this point, they have no idea. He just wants them to go and get this thing. And so he is having meetings later that night to decide, who's going to, which team or group or person who's, going to head this little expedition. So back at the campground, so they're lining up to get food, get dinner. And Alina's in the front, and the man who was serving the food, he realized that she was Shohan, and he basically told her that he didn't want to serve her. So he told her she had to go to the back of the line. So I guess that Shohans, they have to, they eat last. They gonna basically the scraps. So she eventually just threw her little plate down, and she walked off. A couple of them did. And you saw Maul, he's kind of watching this from afar. And he decides that he's going to go into one of the tents to get food. So he went into one of the, Grisha's tent. And, she had this bowl of fresh grapes. So he's going to get this to go and take it to Alina. But of course, she caught him and they talked a little bit. And he realized that she's actually going to be on the team. That Maul is a tracker. And so he is going to be on the team of Zoya. This will be Zoya, who's there. He's going to be part of this expedition to go through the fold to get supplies. And so, she's kind of telling him how she could have him arrested and for stealing, and she kind of flirts with him a little bit and starts talking about how she's always nervous the night before. A big she didn't say use the word expedition, but whenever she's nervous, she kind of beds some random person.
When I get nerves the night before, I like to have a good tumble with a stranger.
He politely declined, and he walked off with the grapes. And so he eventually found Alina, and they sat and talked for a while. And he gave her the grapes, and of course she questioned where he got it from, but you know, that whole back and forth. And then she asked him if he, you know, confirmed if in fact his name was supposed to be on the list, and it was. And so of course they feel some kind of way because it's dangerous, and you know, the fears that he's not going to come back. She's never going to see her friend again. And so she kind of joked like, I can shoot you in your foot, right? So you'd be too injured to go. And they talked and basically came to terms with the fact that, I mean, there's not a whole lot they can do. His name is being called. He has to go. And he then said that he's going to go to Ketterdam and gamble. Basically, you know, he may as well, you know, enjoy himself as much as he can before. So then we flash back to Ketterdam. You see Kaz, Jesper, and Inez. They're kind of meeting with random people, trying to get as much information as they can about the fold and other avenues they could potentially take to go around the fold. They're just trying to figure out anything they can. And eventually, you know, they're back at the bar and they're realizing that it's a no-go. Even Jesper was like, you know, this sounds like a setup. There's really, you know, and they're really like, you know, I think we should pass on this. And Kaz is kind of like, okay, well, he's feeling like there's something big. Like, what is, you know, given how dangerous this is, why would they hire somebody to do this? And what exactly is this thing that's worth all this money that you're trying to pay these people to go and get? And so his interest is piqued. So while they're talking, they're going back and forth over whether or not to just walk away. A guy walks in and basically said that they had intercepted a message from Dresden, the wealthy merchant, that was for the Orchard. I don't know if that's another club, tavern, or whatever that is. And how they are looking for a heart bender.
Since they require the services of a heart render tonight.
And Taz is like, well, why do they need, who needs a heartbender? And then of course he goes into what they actually do. Like, the only reason you would need them is if you're trying to get information out of somebody who's being uncooperative.
You don't bring in a heart render unless you need an answer out of someone who isn't willing to talk.
So now, of course, his interest is further piqued. So where once, you know, they, you know, really trying to say, you know, we need to let this go. He's like, okay, there's something to this. There's something else going on here. Okay, so after getting this information from one of his informants, Kaz realized that in order for them to get this job, they're going to have to find Dresden heart render. So before they left, the guy did tell them that there's another group led by a guy named Pico Rollins, who's also in search of a heart render. So he's already aware of everything that's going on, and you know, the ball's already in play. So they have competition at this point. So Rollins has now found the guy that owns the Orchard bar, tavern, whatever this place is, brothel. And he is aware that this guy has a heart render. And so he wanted the heart render, obviously, so he can get the job for with Dresden.
I'm in need of a heart render tonight for $1 million Kruger job. And you got one.
But the heart render is an indentured servant to this guy. So Rollins came up with this idea. His plan is that he's going to take over all this man's business and only pay him 10% of the earnings. And of course the man was like, well, why would I do that when I get 100%? And so he basically told him that if he doesn't take the deal, he's going to get 0 because he's going to be dead. Okay, so back at the campgrounds, General Kiergan has arrived. They're all getting suited up and, you know, getting, you know, their weapons and all that together because it's almost time for them to head out. And Mal and Alina pretty much say their goodbyes.
I'll be back before you know it.
So while they're still packing up the ship and they're all, you know, getting everything together, she has this idea that she's going to go in because she's a cartographer, so she has access to all the maps. So she went in and picked the maps that they would need in order to chart their course through the fold, and she destroyed them. So of course, when the guy who runs the camp came in and he's talking to the woman, I guess this would be the person in charge of the cartographers. Of course, he's upset because the only maps that were destroyed were the maps that they needed. And so, of course, Alina was there to volunteer her services.
Now someone will have to cross the fold to redraw these maps.
I'll go. Put me on the skiff. I'll go.
But the screwed up part about this is that he didn't just send her. He sent her entire unit. So while, you get that, she didn't want to say goodbye to her friend, at the same time, she kind of dragged these other people into this mess with her. And so now her entire unit is being sent with them. And even they were confused, like, wait a minute. I thought that we were heading south, but now we're going west. What happened? And it was like a woman in the group that said, what did you do? And so she was like, okay, there's something going on here. Sorry, my phone was going off here. So she was like, okay, what did you do? And so it was a guy in the group that was like, leave her alone. It's just, something that happens. And so now they're on the ship. Of course, Maul is shocked to see her. He's upset. He knows it's dangerous. He doesn't want her to go. And he basically told her he wanted her to get off the ship. But by that time, it was too late. They were already locking things, getting everything together to head out.
Get off this boat now, or I'll carry you off.
Raise the gate! Ready to look up!
Okay, so before they entered into the fold, which is this black mist, right? They're going through, they're basically giving them pointers on what to do and not to do. Cartographers, you're not allowed to leave your stations. You have another woman basically saying that there's a blue light that's on deck. That is the only light they're going to use. It's weak, but it's going to help them. It's going to help them see enough to get through, but it's not going to be bright enough to draw attention to them. And so they're not allowed to use any other light. And so you see them pass through. So of course they pass through. It's dark. You see like remnants of other ships, and it's a lot of debris. And of course there's always that one who decides that they're not going to follow the rules. And when the blue light went out, at this point there was the only light they had, but they were still moving along. And he somehow has this lantern, has this lighter, decides to use this lighter to light this lantern, which is what she told them not to do, not to use any other light because it's going to draw attention to them. And what do you think happened?
What are you doing?
He ends up drawing attention to them. The Volcra, which are these dragons, I don't even know what the hell they are. So now these things are picking people off one by one. He has this lantern that that's already a light. So once he drops that, of course it sets the ship on fire. One of the guys from Alina's unit decides he's gonna jump ship, and that's exactly what he did. People are still, it's chaos at this point. Maul ends up being injured by one of them. One of them grabs him, she shoots it, it drops him, but at this point he's already injured. And you can see he's dying, and the next thing you know, one comes up behind her, grabs her, and of course she kind of lights up. There's this burst of light. So the next scene, we see West Ravka. So they are standing waiting for them to appear on the other side of the fold so that they can get these supplies. And so the person who's in charge on that side was like, okay, wait a minute. It doesn't seem like it, but it's been like 2 hours. And he's like, okay, well, they should have come through by now. They're trying to figure out like what's going on.
It's been too long. She emerged 2 hours ago.
Just as he was about to turn to walk away, who runs through? The guy from Alina's team who had jumped ship. So he managed to run from wherever they were all the way through to the West Bank. And so now, of course, they're questioning him. Okay, where's the rest of your peoples? Like, how did you get here? Where's everybody else? So Rollins is now, you can see them cleaning up the blood. So clearly they've already killed the guy. And he's decided that they're taking over. He's now meeting with some of the staff, basically telling them that, you know, this place is under new management. Before he can even finish his little speech, one of his guys walk in and say the Heartbender is gone.
So, new management, gents. Here's the deal.
The Heartbender's gone, boss.
So the whole point of him going there was to get the Heartbender. Now she's gone. And so he's like, okay, well, who took her? And then you flash to Kaz and his crew. And they're on their way to see Dresden. And of course, she's like, you know, well, basically, you only basically rented me. You only bought an hour of my time or a few hours of my time, and I need to go back.
I really appreciate the new business, but you've only paid for an hour of my time.
So at this point, they've made it there. They're now talking to Dresden. Dresden and Kaz are kind of going back and forth, and eventually they come to an agreement. They go downstairs to meet with this prisoner. Now, they did flash the prisoner when they initially started talking about him needing this heartbender, but the prisoner's face was covered. So at this point, who the prisoner was a mystery up until this point. So they get down to the basement, they pull the cover off the person's head, and you realize it's a familiar face. It's the guy that was part of Alina's team, Alexia, I couldn't pronounce this man's name. It's the guy that ran through the fold, and they had on the ship asking him, okay, where's the rest of your people? And at this point, it's been 2 weeks. So, they need him to, it's up in there whether or not he remembers and he's not saying, or he's not saying because it's locked in there somewhere. He just really doesn't remember. And so the Heartbender, once they pulled the cover off, you can kind of see in his face like she recognized him.
Is Alexei Stepanov?
So the Heartbender went over and started talking to him, and then he starts talking about what happened, how he was saved, and then it flashed to from his vantage point, what happened. And when they asked him, well, do you know who it was? And he named Alina.
Her name is Alina Starkov.
And so part of me was like, okay, why would you do that? Another part of me is like, okay, girl, you did kind of put them in a spot by burning those maps, and now instead of them going on the mission they were initially supposed to go on, now they ended up on the ship. And most likely the rest of the people that was a part of her team were killed in this whole thing. So, yeah, I was going through all that in my mind, and I was like, okay, why you throw her under the bus? But then it's like, technically he shouldn't have been there in the first place. So, okay, I'm kind of torn. Anywho, now they know it's Alina. And Kaz and his crew, they got the job. And basically their job is to now find Alina and bring Alina to Dresden. And that's how this episode ends. So I'm going to end this here, and I guess I'll talk to you guys in the next video.